The Breaking Point commander, Elena Vasquez, stood in the viewing gallery of the Galactic Council chambers, her hands clenched behind her back. Through the transparent floor, she could see Earth rotating slowly below, blue and beautiful and deadly, the planet that gave birth to humanity, the planet the rest of the galaxy called a nightmare world. The council chamber fell silent as the High Chancellor rose from his floating platform. His species, the Valorians, looked like tall silver birds with too many eyes. He spoke in the universal trade language, his words translated instantly into Elena's neural implant. The petition of humanity is denied. Again. Elena felt something crack inside her chest. 300 years? 300 years since humanity discovered faster than light travel and met the galactic community. 300 years of being treated like dangerous animals. 300 years of begging for basic rights. The incident at Proxima Station does not warrant council intervention, the Chancellor continued. The colony was established in disputed territory. The Crethean Empire had every right to defend its borders. Defended their borders. That was what they called it when Crethean warships bombed a civilian colony from orbit. 15,000 humans dead. Men, women, children, all because humanity dared to settle on a planet the Cretheans wanted. Behind Elena, Ambassador Williams stepped forward. He was an old man, his hair white, his face marked by decades of diplomatic service. High Chancellor, please reconsider. The colonists were unarmed. They had families, children. The Cretheans gave no warning before. Enough! The Chancellor's feathers ruffled in agitation. Humanity forgets its place. You come from a death world. Your planet has gravity that would crush most civilized species. Your diseases are weapons. Your very bodies are built for violence. The Council has been generous in allowing you any representation at all. Elena watched Williams' shoulders slump. She had seen this happen before. 3 times now humanity had petitioned the Council for protection. 3 times denied, but this was worse. This was a massacre, and the Council did not care. The other Council members sat in their floating platforms arranged in a great circle around the chamber. 200 species representing thousands of worlds. Not one spoke in humanity's defense. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked bored. A few, like the Crethean delegate, looked pleased. This session is concluded, the Chancellor announced. Elena turned away from the gallery and walked into the corridor outside. Williams followed her, his steps heavy. Around them, other human diplomats and staff moved in shocked silence. 300 years, Williams said quietly. 300 years, and we're still monsters to them. Elena looked at him. Because we come from a world where everything tried to kill us. Because we evolved in high gravity and breathe an atmosphere that most species consider toxic. Because we can eat things that would poison them and survive injuries that would kill them. We didn't choose to evolve on Earth, Williams said. We didn't choose to be strong? No, Elena agreed. But they'll never see past it. To them will always be the scary things from the death world. Her communicator buzzed. Elena checked the message and felt her blood run cold. Another incident. A human science vessel, the Discovery, had been fired upon by Council enforcers near the Sirius system. The ship was destroyed. All 70 crew members dead. The reason? The Council claimed the ship was in restricted space, but Elena knew the coordinates. The Discovery had been in open territory, conducting a mineral survey. It was legal. It was peaceful. And the Council had killed them anyway. She showed the message to Williams. The old ambassador read it, and something changed in his face. The hope that had kept him fighting for 3 centuries seemed to drain away. They'll never stop, he said. Will they? No matter how peaceful we are, no matter how much we try to follow their rules, they see us as threats, as weapons, as things to be controlled or destroyed. Elena thought about Proxima Station. 15,000 dead. She thought about the Discovery. 70 more. She thought about 300 years of humanity, bowing and scraping and begging for basic dignity from species who would never grant it. She thought about her daughter, Sarah, living on Mars, growing up in a galaxy that hated her for the crime of being human. No, Elena said. They'll never stop. Williams looked at her. He was old and tired, but there was something new in his eyes now. Something hard. What are we going to do? Elena pulled up her communicator and sent a single coded message. It went to Admiral Chen commanding the 5th Fleet, to General Martinez on Luna Base, to Commander Singh at the Outer Colonies Defense Network, to 100 other officers across human space. The message was simple. Prometheus Protocol, activate. Williams stared at her. Elena, what have you done? What we should have done 200 years ago, Elena said. We tried peace. We tried diplomacy. We tried being good citizens of the galactic community. And they answered with massacre after massacre. They answered by treating us like animals. You're talking about war. I'm talking about survival. Elena's voice was steady. They want to see us as Deathworlders? Fine. Let's show them what Deathworlders can really do. Williams was silent for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. The weapons research? The secret shipyards? All of it, Elena confirmed. For 200 years we've been preparing for the day they pushed us too far. Today is that day. Across human space the message was received. On 1,000 worlds and stations human military forces began to move. Shipyards hidden in asteroid belts powered up. Weapons that the Council didn't know existed were loaded onto vessels. Soldiers who had trained in secret prepared for deployment. Humanity had learned hard lessons on Earth. Their homeworld had tried to kill them for millions of years. They evolved in a crucible of predators and diseases and natural disasters. They learned to adapt, to survive, to fight. The galaxy thought it knew what humans were capable of. The galaxy was wrong. Elena stood in the corridor of the Council station and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human fleets were gathering. Somewhere out there, the Council was about to learn a terrible truth. You could oppress a species for a while. You could treat them as lesser beings. You could deny them justice and dignity. But only for so long. Eventually, every victim learns that if you can't have peace, you take freedom by force. The Deathworlders had tried peace for 300 years. Now they would try something else. Send a message to all human colonies, Elena ordered. Tell them to prepare for war. Tell them that we're done asking for permission to exist. Tell them that if the galaxy wants to see us as monsters, we'll give them monsters. Williams looked at her. This will change everything. Good, Elena said. Everything needs to change. In the cold darkness of space, human warships began to move. They emerged from hiding places the Council never knew existed. They powered up weapon systems based on principles the Council thought too dangerous to research. They prepared for a kind of warfare the civilized galaxy hadn't seen in 1,000 years. The Deathworlders were going to war. And the galaxy was about to learn why you should never corner a predator from a world where only the strongest survive. The breaking point had been reached. Now came the storm. The storm unleashed. Admiral James Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Fury and watched the tactical display light up with targets. Before him, spread across 100,000 kilometers of space, sat the Council's 3rd Defense Fleet. 47 warships. 2 orbital fortresses, enough firepower to sterilize a planet. The Council thought it was enough to stop humanity. The Council was wrong. All ships report ready, his tactical officer said. Lieutenant Morrison was young, barely 25, but her hands were steady on her controls. She had been born after first contact. She had grown up knowing nothing but the Council's contempt. Signal the fleet, Chen ordered. Operation Thunderbolt is go. The human armada uncloaked. Across the Orion Nebula region, stealth fields collapsed and revealed what humanity had been building in secret for 2 centuries. 143 warships. Fast. Deadly. Built using principles the Council had forbidden humans to research. Chen watched the Council fleet scramble to respond. They were too slow. They had grown soft, fighting wars with careful rules and civilized restraint. Humanity had learned war on Earth where hesitation meant death. Fire, Chen said. The Fury launched its first volley. Missiles accelerated to a fraction of light speed. Railguns hurled projectiles with devastating kinetic energy. Laser arrays carved through space. The Council ships raised shields and returned fire, but they were built for the kind of warfare the galaxy considered acceptable. Humanity's weapons were not acceptable. They were effective. The first Council ship, a Valorian cruiser, exploded. Then a second. Then a third. They're breaking formation, Morrison reported. Attempting to retreat. Don't let them, Chen ordered. Pursuit pattern Delta. I want every ship accounted for. This was the part the Council never understood. Humans could fight in environments that killed other species. Human ships had redundant systems, armored bulkheads, and crew trained to keep fighting even with hull breaches. Other species fled when damaged. Humans adapted and continued. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, 47 Council ships were destroyed or disabled. The 2 orbital fortresses were rubble. The human fleet had lost 9 ships. It was a massacre, but not the one the Council expected. On the other side of the galaxy, similar battles were unfolding. At Kepler Station, Commander Sarah Park led a boarding action against a Council supply depot. Her Marines wore armor that compensated for the station's low gravity, something that made Council soldiers clumsy and slow. They moved through the corridors like the apex predators their evolution had made them. Park's team reached the command center in 18 minutes. The Council forces surrendered without understanding how humans had adapted so quickly to the station's environment. They didn't know that human children played in low gravity for fun. That human soldiers trained in every possible condition Earth and its colonies could provide. At the Proxima Centauri jump gate, Captain Rodriguez executed the most audacious operation of the opening days. He took a single destroyer and destroyed the gate's control systems, trapping a Council fleet on the wrong side. Then he broadcasted a message to the stranded ships. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the United Earth Space Force. You have bombed our colonies. You have killed our children. You have spent 300 years treating us like animals. Consider this your first lesson in what animals can do when they're done being victims. Surrender or die." Half the fleet surrendered. The other half fought and died. In the Council chambers, panic spread like wildfire. The High Chancellor called an emergency session. Representatives from 200 species gathered to address what they called the human problem. "How is this possible?" the Chancellor demanded. "We monitored their military capabilities. We restricted their access to advanced technology. How did they build a fleet of this size?" A Krithian military analyst projected holographic data. "They used civilian mining operations as cover. Asteroid processing facilities were actually shipyards. Trade vessels were weapons platforms in disguise. They've been preparing for this for decades. Centuries," corrected a small voice. The chamber fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. She was a Velthian, a species known for intelligence and analytical thinking. Her name was Shalara, and she worked in the Council's Historical Records Division. "What did you say?" the Chancellor asked. Shalara's hands trembled, but she stepped forward. "I've been researching human history. They've been preparing for this since first contact. Every treaty we forced on them, every restriction we imposed, every time we denied them basic rights. They were learning, adapting, building. Impossible. We would have detected, we saw what we expected to see," Shalara interrupted. "We thought humans were simple. Violent but simple. We were wrong. Their homeworld made them into something we don't understand. On Earth, species that couldn't adapt died. Humans learned to adapt to anything." The Krithian delegate stood. "Then we destroy them now, before they grow stronger. We have thousands of ships. They have barely more than 100, do we?" Shalara pulled up more data. 3 hours ago, we had the 3rd Defense Fleet at Orion. 47 ships. Now we have 0. This morning, we controlled the Proxima Gate. Now it's in human hands. Yesterday, we held Kepler Station. Today, humans own it. She looked around the chamber. In 24 hours, humanity has crippled 3 major military assets. They've seized critical supply routes, and they've done it with fewer ships and smaller forces. Because while we've spent 1,000 years making war civilized, they've spent 4 million years learning how to survive on a planet that wanted them dead. The Chancellor's feathers flattened against his body, a sign of fear. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we created this," Shalara said. "Every time we denied them justice, every time we treated them as less than sentient, every time we let species like the Krithians bomb their colonies, we taught them that the only language we understand is violence. So now they're speaking that language." "Heresy!" the Krithian delegate shouted. "The humans are monsters, Deathworlders, genetic nightmares. We should have exterminated them at first contact. But we didn't," Shalara said quietly. "We enslaved them instead. We used them as shock troops in our wars, as laborers in our mines, as test subjects in our laboratories. We thought being from a death world made them animals. It didn't, it made them survivors. And now they're done surviving on our terms." On Earth, Elena Vasquez received reports from across human space. Victory after victory, but also casualty lists. The Council was fighting back now and humans were dying. Ships were lost. Stations were bombed. The cost was already terrible. Her communicator chimed. It was her daughter Sarah calling from Mars. "Mom, I heard about the battles. Are you okay?" Elena looked at her daughter's face on the screen. 15 years old. Growing up in a galaxy at war, I'm fine, sweetheart. Stay safe on Mars. The defenses there are strong. Mom, was this the right thing to do? Elena was silent for a moment. I don't know if it was right, but it was necessary. They would have kept killing us bit by bit until there was nothing left. At least now we're fighting back. People are scared, Sarah said. Humans and aliens both. Everyone's scared. Good, Elena said. Fear means they'll take us seriously. Finally. She ended the call and looked at the tactical display. Human forces were advancing on multiple fronts, but the Council had more ships, more resources, more worlds. This war was just beginning, and Elena knew that before it ended, the galaxy itself would burn. In his ship, Admiral Chen prepared for the next battle. His crew worked with mechanical efficiency, repairing damage and reloading weapons. They didn't celebrate their victory. They couldn't afford to. There would be another battle tomorrow, and another the day after, until humanity was free or extinct, Sir Morrison said. Intelligence reports a Council fleet gathering at Kepler 442. They're planning a counterattack. Chen nodded. Plot a course. We hit them before they're ready. Sir, they outnumber us 4-1, Chen smiled grimly. Then it's a fair fight. The Fury and its battle group jumped to faster than light speeds, leaving the wreckage of the Council fleet behind. Across the galaxy, the storm was spreading, and humanity was the lightning at its heart. The galaxy burned 6 months into the war. The galaxy was bleeding. Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of Luna Base and watched the casualty numbers climb. Human losses, 400,000 military personnel, 2 million civilians. Council losses, triple that, but spread across 200 species. The numbers didn't capture the reality. Behind every number was a person, a life. A family destroyed, Commander, her aide said. The Kepler 442 system. The report just came in. Elena pulled up the file and felt her stomach drop. The battle at Kepler 442 had been catastrophic. Both sides had committed everything they had. When it was over, the star system itself was destroyed. A Council weapon had destabilized the sun. Admiral Chen had managed to evacuate most of his fleet, but the planets were gone. 5 billion civilians dead, human and alien both. The whole galaxy saw it. The images spread across every network. A star tearing itself apart. Planets burning. Refugees fleeing in whatever ships they could find. Children crying for parents who would never answer. This has to stop, her aide said. She was crying. Commander, this madness has to stop. Elena wanted to agree. But she knew it couldn't stop, not yet. Not until humanity had what it needed. Freedom, security. A guarantee that what happened at Proxima Station would never happen again. Send a message to all colonial governors, Elena said. We hold the line. No matter what. Across the galaxy, the war spread like cancer. Species that had been neutral were forced to choose sides. Some joined the Council out of fear. Others, surprisingly, sided with humanity. The Terrans were a small species. Barely 1 billion individuals spread across 3 worlds. They had been conquered by the Krethians a century ago and forced into servitude. When human forces liberated the Terran homeworld, their leaders made a choice. We will fight with humanity, the Terran Prime Minister announced. Better to die free than live as slaves. It was a pattern that repeated across multiple systems. Species that the Council had oppressed saw humanity's rebellion as their own chance at freedom. The war stopped being just human versus Council. It became something bigger, a revolution against the old order. But the Council wasn't backing down. In their chambers, the High Chancellor authorized increasingly desperate measures. Deploy the synthesis array, he ordered. The synthesis array was a weapon the Council had built 1,000 years ago and sworn never to use. It could turn a star into a gamma-ray burst, sterilizing everything in its path. The weapon was illegal under every galactic convention. But the Council was losing, and desperate beings make terrible choices. The target was selected, Tau Ceti, a human colony with 30 million inhabitants. The array powered up, drawing energy from the system's star. Elena received the warning from her intelligence network. Shalara, the Velthian analyst, had turned traitor to the Council and was feeding information to human forces. They're going to fire the array at Tau Ceti, Shalara's message said. You have 72 hours. Maybe less. Elena called an emergency meeting of her senior commanders. Admiral Chen attended via hologram. General Martinez from the ground forces. Commander Park from special operations. A dozen others. We have to stop them, Chen said immediately. The array's location is heavily defended, but if we commit everything, it's a trap, Martinez interrupted. They want us to commit everything. Then they hit our other positions. We can't let 30 million people die, Park said. The room erupted in argument. Elena listened to them debate tactics and strategy while her mind raced. There was no good answer. Either sacrifice a fleet to save Tau Ceti, or sacrifice Tau Ceti to preserve military strength, unless there was another option. I'll go, Elena said. The room fell silent. You're the supreme commander, Chen protested. You can't. I can and I will, Elena said. Give me a fast ship and a small team. We infiltrate the array station and disable it from inside. While the Council is watching for a fleet attack, we ghost in and take out their weapon. That's suicide, Martinez said. Maybe, Elena agreed, but it's 30 million lives. Someone has to try. 48 hours later, Elena and a team of 12 commandos approached the synthesis array in a captured Council vessel. They had Shalara with them, the Velthian providing access codes and security protocols. The array is in final preparation, Shalara said. 24 hours until they can fire. Elena checked her weapon. Around her, the commandos did the same. They were the best humanity had. Special forces trained for impossible missions. But this might be impossible even for them. The ship docked at the array station. Elena's team moved through the corridors in Council military uniforms they had stolen. Shalara led the way, her credentials getting them through security checkpoints. They were 3 levels from the control center when alarms went off. They know we're here, one of the commandos said. Then we run, Elena ordered. They fought through corridors filled with Council security forces. Elena's team was outnumbered 20-1, but they had the advantage of Deathworld genetics. They could take hits that would drop other species. They could fight in the station's variable gravity without getting disoriented. They could push their bodies beyond what Council soldiers thought possible, but they were still dying. Elena watched her team fall one by one. Martinez got hit by plasma fire and went down. Chen took a projectile to the chest. By the time they reached the control center, only 4 of them remained. Elena, Shalara, and 2 commandos named Williams and Park. Inside the control center, Council technicians scrambled to finish the array's activation sequence. They had minutes, maybe less. I can stop it, Shalara said, running to a control panel. But I need time. You'll have it, Elena promised. The 4 of them held the doorway against wave after wave of Council security. Elena's arm was burning where plasma had grazed her. Park was bleeding from a dozen wounds. Williams was limping on a shattered leg. But they held. Done, Shalara shouted. The array is disabled. It'll take them weeks to repair. Then we leave, Elena said. No, Shalara said quietly. Look, on the displays, Elena could see Council ships converging on the station. Dozens of them. There was no escape. I'll buy you time, Shalara said. I can lock down the station systems. Give you a chance to reach the ship. That means you stay behind, Elena said. Shalara's translator made a sound that might have been a laugh. I was dead the moment I sent you that first message. The Council doesn't forgive traitors. She looked at Elena. Tell the galaxy what you saw here. Tell them the Council was willing to murder 30 million civilians. Tell them the truth, Elena wanted to argue. But there was no time. She grabbed Shalara's hand for a moment, a gesture of thanks, then ran for the docking bay with Park and Williams. Behind them, Shalara worked at the controls. She locked down the station systems, closed blast doors, cut power to security sectors. She bought them 3 minutes. It was enough. Elena's team reached the ship and undocked just as Council forces breached the control center. Through the ship's cameras, Elena saw Shalara face the Council soldiers. She didn't fight. She just stood there, calm and defiant. For the truth, Shalara said. The Council soldiers fired. Elena turned away from the camera. Around her, Park and Williams were silent. They had completed the mission, saved 30 million lives. But the cost was 9 commandos dead and 1 brave Velthian who chose to die for what was right. The ship jumped to faster than light speeds, leaving the array station behind. Elena recorded everything that had happened. The array, the attempted massacre, Shalara's sacrifice. She broadcasted on every frequency to every world, to every ship in the galaxy. This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Space Force. Today, the Council attempted to murder 30 million civilians using a weapon banned by every galactic convention. They were stopped by the courage of 12 human soldiers and one Velthian analyst named Shalara, who gave her life to save those she had never met. The Council claims to represent civilization. This is their civilization: genocide, mass murder, and the willingness to burn whole worlds rather than grant basic rights to those they consider inferior. The message spread across the galaxy, and slowly the balance of the war began to shift. The cost of war. 1 year into the war, Elena stood in the wreckage of what used to be her brother's ship. The UES Resolute had been destroyed in a battle at the edge of Council space. Marcus Vasquez, her younger brother, had commanded the vessel. Now he was gone along with his entire crew. Elena held his dog tags in her hand. They had been recovered from the debris field. That was all that was left of him. Pieces of metal with his name stamped on them. "Commander, I'm sorry," Admiral Chen said. He stood beside her in the salvage bay. Marcus was a good officer. A good man, Elena nodded. She couldn't speak. If she spoke, she would break, and she couldn't afford to break. She was Supreme Commander now. Millions of humans and allied species were depending on her. She had to be strong, but the cost was becoming unbearable. The war had settled into a brutal stalemate. Humanity and its allies controlled roughly a quarter of the galaxy. The Council held the rest. Border systems changed hands weekly. Casualties mounted on both sides, and no one seemed to know how to stop it. In the Council chambers, the High Chancellor was facing his own crisis. 36 species had withdrawn from the Council after Elena's broadcast about the synthesis array. Others were threatening to follow. The united front that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years was fracturing. "We must seek peace," one delegate argued. "This war is destroying us all." "Peace with Deathworlders?" The Crethian delegate spat. "Never. We exterminate them or they exterminate us." The debate raged for hours. In the end, the Council voted to continue the war. But it was a narrow vote and many delegates abstained. On Luna Base, Elena faced a similar divide. Her senior commanders gathered in the war room and the arguments grew heated. "We have them on the run," General Martinez said. "One more major push and we break through their defenses. We can reach the Council homeworlds." "And then what?" Commander Park asked. "We bomb their civilians like they bombed ours? We become the monsters they always said we were?" "We win," Martinez growled. "That's what—" "We win and dictate terms. At what cost?" Park demanded. "We've lost over 1 million soldiers. 3 million civilians. Dozens of colonies are in ruins. How many more have to die before you're satisfied?" Elena listened to them argue. She understood both sides. Martinez was right that they needed to win decisively if they wanted lasting peace. But Park was right too. The war was turning humanity into something dark, something that enjoyed destruction. Reports came in daily of human forces committing atrocities. A colony of Council civilians massacred, prisoners executed, surrender offers refused. Some commanders had stopped seeing aliens as sentient beings and started seeing them as targets. Elena had court-martialed 3 senior officers in the past month for war crimes, but she knew there were others she hadn't caught. The brutality was spreading like a disease. Her communicator chimed. It was a priority message from an unexpected source. A Council splinter group led by moderate species representatives. "Commander Vasquez, this is Ambassador Thelcor of the Velthian Concordat. We wish to discuss peace terms in secret, away from Council hardliners." Elena stared at the message. It could be a trap. It probably was a trap, but it might also be a chance to end this nightmare. She made a decision. "Admiral Chen, Commander Park, you're with me. We're going to meet with Council moderates." "That's insane," Martinez protested. "It's obviously a trap." "Maybe," Elena agreed. "But if there's even a chance to end this war, I have to take it." 3 days later, Elena's ship rendezvoused with a Velthian vessel in neutral space. The location was a dead system, its planets lifeless and cold. A fitting place to discuss peace between enemies. Elena, Chen, and Park crossed to the Velthian ship. They were armed and ready for treachery, but when they entered the conference room, they found only 3 aliens. Ambassador Thelcor, a Terran diplomat named Kess, and surprisingly, the former Council military analyst who had been spreading intelligence to human forces. "You're Shalara's colleague," Elena said, recognizing the Velthian from intelligence photos. "I am Velthar, her brother," the Velthian said. "My sister died believing peace was possible. I intend to honor her sacrifice." They sat at a table, predators and prey from a dozen different evolutionary paths, trying to find common ground. The council is fractured, Thelcor began. 50 species have withdrawn. Another 30 are threatening to leave. The hardliners like the Krethians still control the majority, but their power is weakening. And humanity? Belthar asked, looking at Elena. Are your people united in wanting this war to continue? Elena thought about the arguments in her war room, the atrocities committed by her own forces, the casualty lists that grew longer every day. No, she admitted. We're not. Then there is hope, Kes said. If both sides have factions that want peace, perhaps we can make it happen. The hardliners won't allow it, Chen said. On either side. There are humans who want to see every council world burn, and there are council species who want humanity extinct. Then we remove the hardliners, Thelcor said quietly. The room fell silent. What the ambassador was suggesting was treason. A coup, against both governments simultaneously. You're talking about civil war, Park said. On top of the war we're already fighting. I'm talking about one short, sharp conflict to prevent endless war, Thelcor replied. The hardliners are gathering strength. On the council side, the Krethians are building a new fleet. On the human side, I understand your General Martinez is planning an operation that would genocide a Krethian colony world. Elena's blood ran cold. What? You didn't know, Velthar said. Your own general is planning to deploy a biological weapon, one tailored to Krethian genetics. It would kill every Krethian in the system. 3 billion individuals. Elena stood up so fast her chair fell over. When? 2 weeks, Velthar said. He's been building support among your more radical commanders. They call it Operation Payback. Elena felt sick. Marcus had died fighting to protect civilians, and now her own forces were planning a genocide in his name. I'll stop it, Elena said. Can you? Thelcor asked. How many of your commanders will follow that order? How many have been brutalized by this war that they see genocide as justice? Elena knew the answer. Too many. The war had poisoned them all. Then we do it your way, Elena said. We move against the hardliners. Both sides simultaneously. One coordinated strike to remove everyone who wants this war to continue forever. They spent the next week planning. It was the strangest alliance imaginable. Human commanders working with council moderates, former enemies plotting against their own governments. But they were united by a single purpose: end the war before it consumed the galaxy. The operation launched on a Sunday morning, Galactic Standard Time. On Luna Base, Elena confronted General Martinez in the war room. Her loyal commanders stood behind her, weapons drawn. General Martinez, you're under arrest for planning genocide. Martinez looked at her with contempt. You're weak, Vasquez. Your brother died because the council murdered him. And you want to make peace with his killers. I want to end this war, Elena said. Marcus died fighting for humanity's future. Out for revenge. Humanity's future is in strength, Martinez said. In showing the galaxy we're not to be trifled with. Humanity's future is in knowing when to stop fighting, Elena replied. Stand down, General. Martinez reached for his weapon. Elena was faster. The shot took him in the chest. He fell, blood spreading across his uniform. Around the room, other hardliners were being arrested or killed. It was quick and brutal and necessary. At the same time, on council worlds, the moderates were moving against their own hardliners. The Krathian military command was dissolved. The High Chancellor was removed from power. A dozen species governments were toppled in coordinated strikes. The civil war lasted 72 hours. It was violent and chaotic and claimed thousands more lives. But when it ended, the moderates controlled both sides. Elena stood in a refugee camp on a border world, looking at the cost of the conflict. Humans and aliens together, all suffering the same. Children who had lost parents. Parents who had lost children. Families torn apart by violence that none of them wanted. A young girl approached her. Human Velthian mixed heritage. One of the first generation born after the species made peace. She looked up at Elena with eyes that held too much sadness for a child. Why did the war happen? The girl asked. Elena knelt down to her level. Because people forgot to see each other as people. We saw differences instead of similarities. Fear instead of hope, and will it happen again? Elena wanted to lie. To promise that it wouldn't, but she respected the child too much for that. I don't know, Elena said honestly, but I promise we'll try to stop it. That's all anyone can do. Try. The girl nodded and walked back to her family. Elena stood and looked across the camp. Thousands of refugees. millions across the galaxy, all victims of a war that should never have happened, but maybe, just maybe, it was finally ending. A new galaxy. The peace talks took place on a neutral space station built specifically for the negotiations. It orbited a star that had no planets, no colonies, no history of conflict. A blank slate for a new beginning. Elena Vasquez led the human delegation. Across the table sat Ambassador Thelcor, representing the Council moderates. Between them was enough pain and anger and grief to fill 1,000 years. But also perhaps enough hope to try again. We need to address the fundamental issues, Thelcor began. Humanity's status in the galactic community. The designation of Earth as a death world. The restrictions placed on human expansion and rights. All of that ends, Elena said firmly. Humanity will be equal members of any new government. No restrictions, no special status, equal. Agreed, Thelcor said. But equality comes with responsibilities. Humanity must also agree to the same laws and standards as other species. As long as those laws apply equally to everyone, Elena said. No more species getting away with genocide because they're on the council. No more massacres ignored because the victims are considered lesser. They negotiated for weeks. Every point was argued. Every clause debated. Representatives from dozens of species joined the talks. Some were hostile. Some were hopeful. All were exhausted by the war. The final treaty was signed on a battlefield. Elena insisted on it. The location was Proxima Station, where 15,000 humans had died in the bombing that started everything. The ruins of the colony were still there, a monument to the cost of hatred. The signing ceremony was held in what used to be the colony's main square. Representatives from every species stood among the rubble. Human soldiers stood beside council forces, former enemies watching as their leaders tried to build something better. Elena signed for humanity. Thelcor signed for the council. One by one, other species added their marks to the document. The treaty created the Galactic Assembly. Unlike the old council, every species had equal representation. Decisions required majority support, not just agreement from the powerful. And most importantly, the treaty included provisions for protecting minority species from oppression. It's not perfect, Elena said to Admiral Chen as they watched the ceremony. There will be problems. Species who hate each other will still have to cooperate. Old grudges won't disappear overnight. But it's better than war, Chen said. Elena nodded. It's better than war. The aftermath was complicated. War criminals were tried on both sides. Humans and aliens both faced justice for atrocities committed. Some accepted their punishment. Others remained defiant to the end. General Martinez's supporters tried to paint him as a hero who was betrayed. Elena personally testified at their trials, explaining why genocide was never acceptable even in revenge. My brother died in this war, Elena told the court. He died fighting for humanity's future, not for the right to murder billions of civilians. If we become monsters to fight monsters, what have we won? The reconstruction took years. Entire systems had to be rebuilt. Refugees had to be resettled. Economies had to be restored. It was slow and painful work, but slowly the galaxy began to heal. 50 years later, Elena was an old woman. She walked with a cane now, her body bearing the scars of a lifetime of conflict. She had retired from military service decades ago, but people still recognized her, still remembered what she had done. She visited the memorial at Proxima Station on the anniversary of the signing. The colony had been rebuilt, stronger than before. Human and alien children played in streets where once there had been only ruins. A monument stood in the center of the square, listing the names of everyone who died in the war. Human and alien alike. 15,000 from Proxima, millions from across the galaxy. A young girl approached Elena. She looked to be about 10 with features that suggested mixed human and Velthian heritage. The new generation born after the war, who knew peace as normal. Excuse me, the girl said politely. Are you Commander Vasquez? Just Elena now, Elena said with a smile. Commander was a long time ago. We're studying the war in school, the girl said. My teacher says you helped end it. But I don't understand. Why did the war happen at all? Why couldn't people just talk to each other? Elena looked at the monument, at all those names. She thought about Marcus, about Shilara, about all the others who died because talk had failed. Sometimes people forget to see each other as people, Elena said. They see differences and get scared. And fear makes people do terrible things. The war happened because fear won over understanding. Was it worth it? The girl asked. All those people dying. Was it worth it? Elena was silent for a long moment. It was a question she asked herself every day. It shouldn't have been necessary, Elena finally said. But once it began, we had to see it through. We had to fight for the right to be treated as equals. The cost was terrible. But the alternative was worse. The alternative was accepting oppression forever. She looked at the girl. Now it's your generation's responsibility to make sure it never happens again. You have to remember what the war cost. And you have to be better than we were. You have to choose understanding over fear. The girl nodded seriously. I'll try. That's all anyone can do, Elena said. Try. The girl ran off to join her friends, a mixed group of human and alien children. They played together without seeing species or differences, just kids being kids. Elena watched them and felt something like hope. Maybe the war had been worth it after all, not because of what humanity won, but because of what the galaxy gained, a chance to be better. She left the memorial and made her way to the spaceport. A ship was waiting to take her home to Earth. But before she left Proxima, she stopped at a building near the square. It was the new Galactic Assembly Training Center. Inside, human and alien soldiers trained together. Not as enemies, not as separate forces, but as one military defending all species equally. Elena watched them run through exercises, adapting to each other's strengths and compensating for each other's weaknesses. An instructor called out commands. He was Krethian, one of the species that had bombed Proxima Station all those years ago. The students following his orders included humans, the species the Krethians had tried to exterminate. It was strange. It was uncomfortable, but it was working. Admiral Chen, now also retired, joined Elena at the observation window. Hard to believe, isn't it? He said. 50 years ago we were trying to kill each other. Now look at them. We're still trying to kill each other, Elena said. Just not as much. Chen laughed. Progress, then. Progress, Elena agreed. An alert sounded across the facility. All the instructors and students moved to attention. On the screens around the training center, a news broadcast appeared. This is Galactic News Network. We have breaking reports of an attack on the Outer Rim. An unknown hostile force has destroyed 3 colonies. Casualties in the thousands. The Galactic Assembly is calling for a united military response. Elena and Chen looked at each other. A new threat. A new enemy. But this time, the galaxy would face it together. On the training floor, human and alien soldiers began boarding transport ships. They moved with practiced efficiency, a combined force that represented dozens of species. They didn't argue about who was in charge or who was more important. They just worked together. Think they're ready? Chen asked. They're better prepared than we were, Elena said. They've learned from our mistakes. They know that unity is stronger than division. She watched the ships launch, carrying soldiers from a dozen species to face the unknown threat together. It was what she had fought for. What Marcus and Shalara and millions of others had died for. A galaxy where species could stand together instead of tearing each other apart. Should we come out of retirement? Chen asked. Offer our services? Elena shook her head. This is their fight now. Their galaxy. We did our part. We broke the old system and built something better. Now they have to defend it. They stood together in silence, watching the ships disappear into the stars. 2 old warriors scarred by war, hoping the next generation would do better than they had. Elena thought about the girl at the memorial. About all the children born after the war who knew only peace. They were the reason. They were what made all the suffering worthwhile. Do you think we'll be remembered kindly? Chen asked. Or as the generation that nearly destroyed everything? Both probably, Elena said. We did terrible things. But we also stopped worse things from happening. History is complicated like that. She turned away from the window. Come on, let's go home. They walked out of the training center together. Behind them, a new generation of soldiers defended the galaxy. Ahead of them, the rest of their lives stretched out, quiet and peaceful. The war was over. The Deathworlders had snapped and the galaxy had burned. But from the ashes, something better had grown. Not perfect, never perfect, but better. And sometimes better was enough. In orbit above Proxima, a ship prepared to jump to faster-than-light speeds. On board were soldiers from 7 different species. They had trained together. They trusted each other. and they were ready to face whatever threat the galaxy threw at them. The commander, a young human woman named Sarah Vasquez, Elena's daughter, looked at her mixed-species crew and felt pride. "All stations report ready," her tactical officer said. He was Velthian, descended from the same bloodline as Shalara,